Hi, I'm Corey. Welcome to Creating with Scraps. I have been working on my Take Flight book, the project that I had started with Tracy Fox with the treasures that she had sent me. And for this project, I am using her Compendium 2 paper kit, as well as her recent bird kit. I'll link them below afterwards. I'll come back in and edit it and link those. But I'm using her bird kit and the Compendium 2 simply because there's just so many options and I like the way they work together. So as I was putting this book together, finishing up the bases of the pages, I had made a little notepad, what have you, a closable notepad, and I'd used one of the Compendium Digitals, and I had printed them twice in error, and I didn't want to waste them, and I wanted a simple pocket that coordinated for the other side. And this pocket is a super easy, and again, maybe it's been done and maybe I just haven't seen it, but it's a super easy, simple way to use digital paper. And the beauty is you use an entire sheet. You can use, they print 8.5 by 11. You can use one sheet folded in half, and I'll show you both ways, or one sheet cut in half. And you'll get the same effect. One's just a little bit thicker than the other and is lined inside. So you've got a pocket in the back, you've got a pocket on the side, and then you've got two more pockets on top. So you've got 4 pockets and can easily be decorated. And again, it's fairly flat. So I'm going to show you how I did that. And I'll show you 2 different ways, because sewn and unsewn. Some people like me like to sew on their projects and some prefer not to. All right, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. This one is one way. It's folded in half and then glued to make 4 pockets. 1, 2, 3, 4 pockets. Here it is, the same exact thing, not folded in half. If you look inside, you can see that it's just white inside. And again, 4 pockets. 1, 2, 3, and 4 pockets. And you can orient it either way, right or left, with the pockets opening, whichever direction you prefer. This folded over pocket uses the entire sheet of 8.5 by 11, well, trimmed down because of the edges, of course, paper. And this one uses the same thing with enough left over to make, I just did a simple little writing notebook. And you can put that in the top or use it for another piece in the same journal. And a side tuck, or a tag for the side. So again, no waste, no leftover bits with the 8.5 by 11 digital. And depending on which preference you have, you'll either have 2 pieces of ephemera in your pocket, or you'll just have your pocket. You can do the same thing and sew on it. I'm not sure if you can see here. I sewed on the one in the Take Flight book just because I like that look. And I will show you how to do both, because sewing this one is just a little bit different so that you don't sew your pieces down. But it's the same exact idea, same project. Okay, so the way I started this, and I've done some prep work, is took an 8.5 by 11 piece of digital. And I'll start with the one that is folded in half. All right. You get your piece of paper, make sure your edges are off, and you fold it in half hot dog. Try to get your edges as close as possible, but this is easy to trim, so if they're not perfect, if they're not 100% lined up, it's totally not a big deal. All right, so you fold it in half, crease it down. Then what I do is I take my glue stick and I run it over the whole side, and I lay this down and press, and then I'll put it through my laminator. Okay, and well, let me see if I can grab it. Ah, it's magic. It's been through the laminator. It's done. It's ready to go. It's a different paper, but it's the same. Oh, here, I'll use that one. Same idea. All right. And you can see I didn't line it up perfectly. That's not a problem. I can trim it off later. Once I've got it glued together, I folded it in half, glued it together, I'm going to fold it again. If I want my pockets to open on the right, I am going to put the folded over seam on the left, okay? Because you'll be folding it back this way. If I want my pockets opening to the right, I put the folded seam on the left. If I want the pockets opening to the left, I put the folded, let me see if I said that right. If I want the pockets to open to the left, the folded, see, I knew I said that backwards. I think I did that the last one too. Darn it. Okay, if I want the pockets opening to the left, I put the folded seam on the left. If I want the pockets opening to the right, I put the folded seam on the right. So if I said something else before, disregard. Pockets open on the right, folded seam to the right. Pockets open to the left, folded seam to the left. And whichever you prefer is fine. Simply because I did these opening to the right, I'll do this one opening to the left. So I folded it, glued it, folded it in half. Now I'm going to take this, because I want it to open it to the left, I've got my half seam on the left, and I'm going to fold the top piece. And I'm going to fold it back to kind of whatever reveal I want. However much reveal. You don't have to measure this. It's completely eyeballing. This one's about an inch. I guess that's about an inch. Sure. And I'm going to fold it down. And I would use a bone folder for this because remember, you've got 2 sheets of paper and 2 sheets of paper, so that's kind of a 4 thickness. All right, just fold it down. Then the back piece, I'm going to take this and I want it to just overlap this top piece. Of course, I can wiggle it one way or the other. It's absolutely fine, but I want it to just overlap that top piece. I do want it to cover that top piece, but not by a lot. And again, that's about an inch. So these two are about the same. They don't have to be by any means. And that is the construction of your pocket. Now I'll show you where you glue it and ink it and that kind of a thing. But you can see right up here at the top, I didn't match it up perfectly. So I'm going to fix that right now. Now is the great time to fix it. I'll just lay it in and trim it up. If I've made it too tall, if I wanted a little bit less than what it is, it's a great time to trim that up and even it up. All right. Now, just so you can see the lines, I'm going to ink it. And if you were making this project for yourself, this is where you want to ink the vertical edges. So you've got 2 vertical edges for your pockets. You want to ink those now if you're going to ink them, simply because it's harder to ink those edges once you've glued things down. So I'm going to come ink that. So that's one vertical edge, and then I'm going to ink the other vertical edge. Sorry if it wasn't in frame. I'm not looking in my camera as I'm doing this. And inked the second vertical edge. All right, both vertical edges are inked. And like this. You know what? I didn't fold that quite enough, but that's an easy fix. I can come back in and make it just a little bit thicker. You absolutely must have this covered just a bit. Otherwise, you don't have anything to glue the top pocket closed on. So I refolded it, moved it over just a smidge more. Now I want to glue it in place. So my piece, if opened up, looks something like this. I'm going to glue down my first pocket, the one that's opening to the left, this little bit longer piece. I'm going to glue just the top and bottom edge on that. So I'm going to glue the top and bottom edge on this. All right. And I'm going to glue those down like this. And if you're a tape person, you can absolutely tape that, but I prefer glue, so. All right, that piece has been glued. Now, this is where I made the mistake the first time. When you're folding over the second flap that you created, you don't want to glue it until you've glued this first flap. You have to glue that one first because of the way it sits. And I'm going to glue the bottom of this, the flap that I just folded and glued. I glued the top and the bottom. Now I'm going to glue the bottom only of that flap. Bottom only. I mean, it's easy once you've done it, but then, you know, it's easy to make a mistake if you don't think it through, and which is why I'm doing it this way. All right, so I've glued that down. I've glued the first flap, top and bottom, the second flap, bottom only. Now this last little flap, I'm only going to glue it right along the bottom here. And I'll hold that in place, and it's glued. Then I want to glue just this top corner. I do not want to glue, and this is why you have to have a little bit of overlap. If you don't have an overlap, you have nothing for your glue to adhere to. I don't want to glue the whole top piece. I mean, I could, but then my pocket isn't a full width pocket. It's only a partial pocket. So I'm going to glue just right here at that very edge. I don't want to go down too far because I don't want to impede this pocket. And I don't want to go up too far because I don't want to impede this pocket. So I just put a little bit of glue on that corner and I hold those together. Now what I tend to do, because there's not a lot of real estate there, you can make the flap bigger of course, I'll paper clip, not to the back because I want that pocket to open. I'll paper clip this until it's dry. So I'll hold it in place. That way I'm sure that the back and the flap don't glue together, and that way I'm sure that I don't go down too far here. And then I'd ink all the way around the rest, and I've got 1, 2, 3, and then 4 pockets. All right, so that is the way you do it with double or folded over. Something very similar with single is you cut, here I've got a piece cut, okay. With the single, it's essentially the same thing. I don't fold it in half, that's the only step that I don't do here. But I do fold it, so I've got it this way and I'm going to fold it in half hamburger. And again, I'm going to try to match up the edges pretty closely, but it doesn't have to be perfect because I can trim it. So I'm folding it in half hamburger. Now last time I oriented the pockets opening to the left, so this time I'm going to orient the pockets opening to the right. I'm going to flip it so that my folded over section is on the right hand side. Then I'm going to fold these pockets back. And again, it's an eyeball thing because of where that section ends. I think I'll just use that as my guideline and I'll fold it back right there. And then this piece here, I'm going to give myself a little bit more flap overlap this time because I don't feel like I gave myself enough last time. Excuse me. So I'm going to fold, you can see here, I'm going to fold it over just a little bit more. I want a little bit more. All right. Now, you can certainly leave that white, but I'm not going to because that's just not how I do it. I'm going to take that leftover piece. Remember, I cut this one in half, or maybe that was a different video. That's the problem of using more than one video. I am going to take the piece that's left and I'm going to trim it. And in this case, I'm going to trim it to put it on there. And I will cut it right about here. Okay. This is the section that I fold over and I make my little booklet. So let's see, this becomes this. That's the little booklet. I just used a zigzag stitch, put some pages in it, and that's my little booklet. All right. This is the section that I'm going to use to cover here, to cover this flap, because I don't want to leave it naked. Excuse me. So I'm going to cover just that section because that's the only bit that's going to show. All right. So on the white that was showing, right, here's my fold. On the white that was showing, I'm going to cover that up. And again, I would normally put it through the laminator just because I get a really good adhesion that way, but I don't have to. And I'm going to put this down. Use my ice scraper and push that into place. Okay. All right. Once the glue is dry, I'll trim this section off. And the reason I want to trim that off is because this piece is going to be my tag. The tag that I made for the other one, this section is going to be my tag. And you could use your trimmer if you don't want to worry about cutting that perfectly. But this, I'll back it trim the corners, and there's my tag. So that's the entire sheet. Now, because I've trimmed it down here, I will have a little smidge, and I won't even save these. I mean, they could be used for a cluster, but these are tiny even for a cluster. So I guess there is a smidge of waste, but I'm not even going to call that waste. Okay. Then I've got my pocket. Right. I would encourage you, if you're going to ink the inside, this is a great time to ink it. So I'll ink the vertical flaps again. And this video is getting longer than I wanted. I don't understand why I just can't make a quick video anymore. I used to be able to, well, relatively quick. And I'll walk you through where to sew. That's what I'll do. I was going to sew. I put my machine up there, but I just don't want this to be a long video, and it's getting long. So I'll walk you through how to sew it rather than actually doing it. And if I were going to ink the inside, I would do that right now before I glue it. Just because it's so white, so stark white. You can line this, of course, but then if you were going to do that, you could have done that at the beginning. So I'll ink this along here, and then I'll glue. You do the exact same steps for the one that you're sewing. If you're choosing to sew the edges, you do the same exact thing that we've just done. But I'll pretend that we're sewing this one. So that's the single layer with the 2 extra pieces, your tag and what have you. You're going to glue it the same way we did the first one. You're going to glue the top and bottom flap, right? The first flap. You're going to glue the top and the bottom down. Then you're going to just glue the bottom section only down, and then this top little corner down, and then your pocket's done. It's ready to be, you've got your piece here, 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 and here. So 4 pockets, right? If you want to sew it, sewing it is just a little bit different, and it's not hard, but it's easy to sew it closed. So I'll walk you through it. If you fold it first, then you ink the vertical edges just like, and when I say fold, either you're folding it in half and then going to the next step, or you're just folding it like this. Then if you're going to ink, you ink. Then you sew just the 2 vertical edges. You sew a seam right here, and you sew a seam right here. That's it. Take it out of your machine, trim it, whatever you have to do. Then you're going to fold the short, this flap. You're going to fold the first flap. You're going to fold this over, and your booklet is opened up, right? This is if you're sewing. Your booklet is opened up, and you are going to sew from the corner all the way along the top. So you're going to sew, let me grab the one that's sewn. Here we go. You're going to sew all the way along the top. Okay? It's folded exactly like this. This is unfolded. This one is folded. So your back flap or your top flap is unfolded. Your first flap is folded, and you sew it just like this. Sew along the edge. Okay? So once that's sewn, you fold it back up, and you fold it back up. So you've got a sewn edge all along, but this isn't sewn together. This piece right here is sewn, all right? And you've got stitching all along the edge. Then, I want to make sure I'm telling you right, then you can sew either along the 3 edges, 1, 2, 3, or you can just sew along the bottom, just depending on how big or how wide you want your pocket to be, or how much space you want to have in your pocket. Then your last step is to, again, glue a little bit of a dot right there. And that's it. That's how you sew it. Again, vertical, vertical, take it out. Fold the flap that's closest to the crease down, and then sew all along the top. Cut that, take it off, lay it down, and sew all along the bottom, or sew on the 3 sides, whichever you prefer. All right, and that is that pocket. I hope it gave you an idea, and if somebody else has already done that, I apologize, but I hadn't seen it, and it's very similar to many that we've seen out there, but it was just a little bit different. And the beauty is, again, it uses an entire sheet of digital paper. Thank you very much to those of you who've sent me emails and messages and such. I know it's been a while since I've been here. Life just got busy. It's been a busy spring. I am fine, and I appreciate your kindness and your support. The Happy Meal that you have given me has just touched me in ways that you will never know. So thank you very much for that. I'm hoping to come back and do a flip through next weekend of the completed Take Flight journal. And then I've got a couple other things. I generally don't do sponsored videos where it's they send me a product and I share it, but there are two things that will be coming up. I've got the Lean printer, and it's a photo printer, and the reason I said yes to that is because I often put photos in my junk journals. I like to put photos in memorabilia and writing, and it's a reasonably priced printer, and they offered it, and I thought, well, you know what, I'll take it and I'll review it. So a review of that is coming up. And also Taperology, I'm not 100% sure. I've heard people say it both ways. They sent me some product, and the reason I agreed to that is because I know a lot of people don't like to get out these days to shop for certain things, and if you've got paper and their product, you can make junk journals. So I'll do the unboxing and share some of the things I'll make with that coming up soon as well. And otherwise, happy spring. Thank you for watching. I hope this gave you an idea or two and a way to, maybe do some mass makes and use up some of your extra digitals that you might have. Happy creating.